Welcome to the Matrix Q podcast. This is Luis Daniel Maldonado Fonken with you today. And today I have a very special guest, Ariel. Thank you for joining me here today to talk about your experience as an entrepreneur. I would like to ask you first to please introduce yourself, tell us your story, tell us what do you do, and very special where you're coming from.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast. As I said, my name is Ariel. In my background, I'm a chemist. I made my PhD in artificial intelligence, but long before it was so popular in '94. I was one of the pioneering in the field. I worked 14 years in a big company, in a big corporate. Then I have decided that I want to build my own business. And in 2000, I started my first startup. We built 3 startups in this organization. Took the company public in the NASDAQ. I was several years CEO of the company in the NASDAQ as a public company. We made IPOs, we made secondary rounds, and the company at the end sold and is part of the fund today. And now this is my 5th startup that I'm involved, and I will be happy to tell you a little bit more about my own.
Yes, for sure. I'm very curious about what you're doing now. So, with this new company you are developing, what are you doing with it? It's also about technology.
It always is about the technology, but I think now is the time to cross the pillars and connecting dots. If you're looking still in the universities, you can see, that they are structured on the same that they structure, 50, 60 or 70 years ago. You have biology department, you have engineering department, you have, other department, dietitian departments, etc. And the technology moved ahead. So, you cannot focus only on single pillar. You need to look around and how you can actually cooperate with other technologies that are not necessarily on the same field. So what we doing is actually integrating the technologies rather than focus on single technology. And therefore the product is different. Our product is, and what we're trying to aim is to mitigate or remove the risk for having diseases, which means predict them behind the horizon and using the nutritional vehicle in order to eliminate or mitigate the risk of the disease. But in order to do that, our focus is in integrating technology rather than developing a single. So we have AI and machine learning and big data and nutrition and biochemistry and clinical trials and medical devices. So it's more integration rather than single business.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. So that means that the work of your new startup is fully dedicated to prevention in health.
Yes, and this is a long story because, the healthcare industry is maybe the only industry that really didn't change. It's called health, and health is a great name. But if you're asking what the business of healthcare is doing, is managing diseases. It's not health.
True. That's true.
This is the real business,
That's a good question, yes.
So it's nothing with health. It's managing diseases. And then it's, of course, mutual interest for everyone. When one is sick, he wants that the healthcare will manage him well, and the drug industry wants that you will live longer, and the doctors want to see you many visits they can, and the hospitals. So it's a nice business, and it's growing, and you live longer, and you are able to cope, but it's actually improving the performance of the business. And in prevention, there is no money. And therefore, this is the only industry that was not changed. It's still a business of proactive. It's business reactive rather than proactive. This is the business.
Right.
And I think that today, with the technologies and the new technologies, they gave us new glasses. We actually are able to predict disease long before they they arise. And if you ask what impact the health, there are only three factors: is your genetic, your lifestyle, and the nutrition. Genetic is not relevant because at the moment that you're born, you got your card, so it's not replaceable. Mm-hmm. So the lifestyle and the nutrition should be very effective when you know well in advance, and they are much less effective when the disease occurs. So
right. That's really amazing. I've been wondering always, why there is so much research on disease and so little research on healthy people. There is an abundant amount of healthy people on the planet that stays healthy for so long and have so many skills and abilities, but those healthy habits, the healthy skills, the healthy abilities, the healthy qualities are not being researched fully. I mean, I don't see much of that research. And as you say, health is the study of disease, actually. I am really glad for the work you're doing. It sounds like a change of perspective, and it looks very promising, I think.
I would say it's maybe change of perspective, and maybe you defined it going back to the roots, because if you ask yourself how the healthcare industry was developed, initially, it was developed based on wisdom of crowd. All the Chinese medicine was wisdom of crowds, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
The problem with the wisdom of crowd is that you have variation and you have noises, and you cannot control the noises. But, with big data, you can control the noises. So actually, it's going back to the wisdom of crowd, because the AI allow you to use the wisdom of crowd in order to have very precisely. And what happened in the meantime was that after the Second World War, said, okay, because the noises is not good enough system, and let's do double-blind placebo control, but they very, very narrow what they are doing and have limited with the variation. So I don't think it's a new concept. It's going back, using the new tools to go back to the old concept of if you have enough data, you precisely know what is going.
Exactly. I understand what you're meaning. But it's really wonderful. I really like it very much. I really wish you great success. So considering the type of work that you're doing right now, what would you say today? What is your purpose as an entrepreneur?
My personal ambition is to change the healthcare, because there are some changes in the healthcare that the world needs to change the healthcare. And I will tell you what are the factors that will force to have change in the healthcare. The first one is that, all the drugs are new organic entities. And as a human being, we have a lot of variation. But in the past, when you had a side effect, it was hidden. But now when you have a side effect, the first thing that you're doing, going to the Google and seeing who else got the side effect. And this, in the secondary line, actually shut down the FDA and all the authorities to approve new drugs, because most of the people that are working in this organization are very conservative. They are not ventures guys, and they have nothing to win rather than to lose. They ask you more talks and more safe and more talks and more safe, which is endless, and it becomes very, very expensive. So it's very, very hard to get approval. If you're looking on the drug development, they are today focusing on cancer, where it's highly hard to associate it with your condition, because anyway, orphan drugs, the mainstream almost disappear. So it's very hard to bring. The second one, we're living now longer, which means we're living, in the past we used to live until 60, now 80. People until 60 most of the time are not sick, until 80 most of the time they are at certain point sick. So the healthcare costs become non-affordable to every government. And what they're doing is privatizing. But privatize is moving from the professional guys to the financial guys. This is the meaning.
Right.
And therefore, there is no way to continue with the expenditure of the healthcare cost in the world. And the lack thing that really impact is that we are now a small village. We are not any one world. And
Right.
people, I don't know, in India or in Africa, see how people living in New York before they have a house. They have mobile and they know how they're living. So most of the politician and the politician change, with the digital, they want to bring healthcare to everyone. In India, Modi said that he wants to bring Modicare to 1.4 billion people in one day. And it's impossible. So if you're thinking about the big changes that are happening now in the healthcare, inability to approve new drug, the high cost, and the need to supply healthcare to everyone, the only solution would be focusing on prevention rather than treatment.
Yes,
There is
exactly.
no other solution. Very simple equation. And what happened today that artificial intelligence allow you to work with big data and the knowledge in the nutrition to do prevention much more substantially.
Well, from one side, I see the challenge that comes in the future, but at the same time, this challenge gives us the opportunity to say, today, the only path to go is prevention, because any other path, it's just not going to make it. We claim to have some goals, but then to really achieve them, we need to really go through the path of prevention. That's what is feasible. And it is great that you're pointing this out. My next questions are related more to how you're working in your startup and your personal work. How creativity, because you're an innovator and a thinker, you're analyzing really the situation and trying to find a new perspective. So how creativity has been playing an important role for you, your work?
I have a little bit different view about the creativity in the startups.
Okay.
And when you ask people about startups, they always, will relate it to the technology. In some respect, I disagree. Technology is important, but it's not limited to the technology. And the way that I'm looking on that is since I'm coming from the life science, there is evolution process and mutation processes. Okay. In evolution processes, you look backward and then you predict precisely about forward, ahead, because you have experience. In mutation, there is no past. The past is not relevant.
Yep.
Which means when Walmart building a new shop, they know exactly, they have enough experience to design well the shop. Where Amazon came in the beginning, they had no idea. When Hilton building a hotel, they know exactly. They have enough information. But when they started with Airbnb, they had no idea how it will work. So I personally believe that startups cannot work on evolution curve. On evolution curve, the biggest guys are always much better. Right. They have knowledge, they have experience, they have money, they have process system. There is no way. So a startup needs to work on trying to predict the changes that are occurring independently from different courses ahead and being the first to make the changes and to be prepared for that. And it's more philosophical question than science.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This is my way. So if you want to build really big startup, you need to address the challenges ahead. And the challenges ahead, you not create them. You need to understand them, what is going in the market. But the reason, and the main reason why people worry, because when there is no past, as a human being, we hate uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And you need to walk in the uncertainty zone in order to be able to do that. In the evolution, you have certainty. And all the models for the startups trying to convert the uncertainty to certainty. But if you really want to build a big startup, you need to walk on the dark.
Right. This is wonderful that you're sharing these insights with me right now. I think it's very important for everybody to listen to our interview. to really look at the future and see uncertainty as an opportunity to create a change that today we don't prevent. We cannot see the change happening, but we need to get there. It is so wonderful. I think to work on that edge requires a different type of skill set. How emotional intelligence do you think would contribute with these new type of startups? Is emotional intelligence really definitely something important for entrepreneurs that want to be successful?
I don't know if emotional intelligence is the word, but I think the right word is the grit.
Okay.
This is the right word because, there are two things as a human being we hate. We hate to be in uncertainty and always trying to convert the uncertainty to certainty, and we had to fail. And there is no way to go in the dark without failures. And the grit is what will take you further. Understanding that failure is part of the process. You need to work like statistician. We need to put always your hypothesis and saying, this is my hypothesis. I reject or accept. And not fall in love with your technology. And no, it's statistical work. This is my hypothesis, yes or not. If not, go to the next one. And actually, is accumulated failures that bring you to the success. But those who don't have the grit capabilities will never be there.
Thank you for sharing this too. It's so very important. Fear to failure and positive failure, grit, very important keywords today. Startups, mostly in technology, and today more and more starters are looking for that agile approach, to starting a business with a little idea, a simple little investment, and test the idea with the market and grow, mostly bootstrapping and developing based on how the market reacts to that idea. I think personally, they give you some journey that is very interesting, very good for learning. But I'm wondering if that journey really brings you forward, to the future to really grow the startup. And also, I see the challenge that startup founders and teams have in terms of selling. There is a kind of understanding that selling is not a good thing to do, that the innovators don't want to sell. They don't feel right of selling. They want to contract salespeople or people involved in marketing. There is a gap on communication and fear about maybe failure or frustration in terms of, communicating the value of what we do. Why do you think is that so profound, in the back end of researchers and innovators, people that's creative or entrepreneurs? I mean, I think a real entrepreneur has no problem about communicating the value of what they do. But when we're talking about innovation, there is always this challenge of will they accept it or not? It's too early, it's too late, it's frustrated, it's not. One more time, is the fear to failure, or is more the understanding that selling is actually an opportunity to create a positive impact, and therefore it's not a negative thing to do? What's your experience about it?
I think it's a good question, but it's a little bit more complicated. Because I had a CEO one day told me, Ariel, people always doing what they love and what they know. So you bring CEO that was before the financial, he's financial guy. He was in the research, he has his long leg he was in the business development. So at the end of the day, startup is at beginning is a small team, and they know what they know, and they're focusing on what they know. And this is, again, because they feel most confident in the area that they know. If you are a technology guy or development guy or whatever. And I think moving from the comfort zone is not easy. But for startup, big companies working forward, which means they design and going to the market. And from startup, you need to go backward, which means to understand the market and going back. And unfortunately, this is not parallel lines. Going forward or backward is not a parallel lines. So you cannot go to the same point. And therefore, I personally invest 80% of my my efforts always to understand the market and then to adjust the technology rather than to develop technology and going to the market.
Thank you. That's quite wise, I think, from many different sides of the development of the company, and particularly for investment. I remember a mentor I had for business many years ago, the early 2001, 2002. He was an ICT developer, and today he still asks me to develop first the technology, for them to explore the technology before going to the market with a tiny MVP, And we always have these discussions, and I say, I'm not going to invest so much money without knowing that things gonna work fine. I need to be sure that the market is, responding to what I do, and that what I do is really responding to what the market needs. And I think it's not a generational gap, but it's a question of a different approach, for business.
Yes, because people not always there to go to the market when they don't have something, but
yes.
But the key component is to understand what is the compelling need and what are the tools available, and then the technology have a lot of reshuffle, to adjust to what you need and not necessarily what you think.
How do you look at the future today? What do you think is coming in the future? Because we're living at the moment in a time of transitions, accelerated change, there is commotion, greater uncertainty today. How do you feel about the future? How we should look at the future?
It's very hard, because if you would ask me 30 years ago about the future, I cannot even think about it, and cannot dream about it. But I think that there are several sectors that really came to maturation, like e-commerce, digital platform. The revolution was done, and I don't know how far they can go, but if you're looking what they're trying to do something else, like IR and other things. So I think in this respect, the revolution was done, but there are many industries that stayed back, and the revolution was not done. And healthcare is one of them, agriculture is one of them. So there are still industries that are back, and I expect that this industry may reshape the business in the future.
I hope that your contribution will accelerate that change, certainly.
Yes, but there are others,
Yep, there is still much work to do. I have two more questions for you, please. The first one is about diversity and inclusion. We're talking about, and I'm very glad that you mentioned it at the beginning of the conversation, about being more holistic, multidisciplinary, integrating, disciplines in the work. But also we're talking about diversity of cultures, diversity of people, how challenging it is today in the entrepreneurial space to bring diversity and inclusion into the work.
First of all, it's very important, because today the challenge, people still start thinking on the concept of 30 years ago. The technology is mature today. I started my PhD in 94, almost 30 years ago. Really, you had to know programming. You don't need to be expert in AI. AI is available, believe me. It's not a challenge anymore. The challenge is how to use it rightly and how to do that. So, and therefore diversity is very important, but there are other things that are very important, which I see time by time mistake. Many investors saying, you need experienced people. And many times they bring experienced people, but experienced are good when you're doing evolution, and they have limited knowledge, and they have so much failures. And what really takes you far away is naivety. It's not the experience. The naivety takes you far away. So if you look on the world today, like Facebook, Amazon, Google, Apple, etc., all of them were built with guys with zero experience. And all those who had huge experience, Walmart and Hilton and and I don't know, all, the experience actually bound them from thinking differently.
Right.
And one thing that I always insist to work with young people, not because young people are better, because they don't have the boundaries and they have the naivety. And people with experience, they have so much failures that they always will tell you it will not work.
Yeah. Yes. I have seen that, and I think that it's convenient and it's an opportunity because we always have new people coming with creative ideas, and that naivety, it's part of the game. So
Naivety
I
is
see
the
a
game.
greater future. What will be your message to younger entrepreneurs today?
Try. Don't listening.
Ariel, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the conversation. Appreciate it. I hope that we can talk again soon and follow up with, your startup. Much
Thank you.
success.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.